box as the pitcher throws the ball. The batter would enter the box with his back foot. In tennis, that's called the open stance forehand. The killer forehand also is hit using the neutral stance, where the front foot steps forward toward your target. You must master hitting the killer forehand from both the open and the neutral stance. A common problem in many players is the closed hitting stance. That would be the same as the batter entering the batter's box with their front foot first. This is firing a cannon from a canoe. We have a bungee cord attached to the back fence and X in a closed stance. No balance, no power, no killer forehand.
Here's how your stance can affect your stroke. Notice the bungee attached to the racket that regulates leverage, or the position of the wrist that you want at contact point. You can see that in an open stance, there are no problems. From a closed stance, everything changes. When you enter the batter's box with only the front foot and you're forced to hit from a closed stance, it makes you have to reach to what's actually the follow-through position to make contact, while also snapping your wrist, turning your contact zone into a contact point. The closed stance forehand. No balance, no power, no consistency, no control. So keep your killer forehand out of that canoe. You'll notice the open stance has only the back foot in the batter's box. Frequently, there's no time to step into the ball and you're forced to hit from the open stance. The neutral stance allows you to drive your weight into the ball and is commonly used when coming forward and often when the ball's hit down the center. With footage of yourself, check and see if you're hitting effectively from both situations. Remember, avoid the closed stance altogether.
Excellent feet. Feet are looking good. Wonderful movement right there. Now, notice right there with Elaine that she's able to hit the open stance and the neutral stance, okay? Now, never once did she get into blocking herself out. And what I also like is she went from an open to a semi-neutral and a neutral. She had everything, which means that everything is dependent on her feet. All right, I like it.
Tennis is a very different game when it's played on clay. The slick, sandy surface requires excellent footwork technique. Much like in tournament ping pong, where the competitors are distant from the table's edge, the topspin rallies of clay court play keep the players deep in the court. It is more of a game of endurance, requiring a strong-willed mentality, patience, and a grinder physique. You have to explode from at rest into motion. You have to be sharp on change of direction and recovery. In this comparison, you'll see one of the benefits of using clay court movement technique. In both situations, X makes contact with the ball well inside the single sideline. But notice how much further the killer on the run technique pulls X off the court before recovery. The killer on the slide allows X to easily recover and continue the point.
He can flat out right hit a ball, huh?
Now that we know our desired hitting stances, what creates the correct hitting stance? Early and correct racket preparation, because your hand and feet are trying to work together to set up the stance for the stroke. It is your hitting hand and preparation that sends the message down to the corresponding foot. To better understand this, let's turn off the lights.
If the butt of your racket were a flashlight, in preparation you would want to keep the flashlight ahead of your body as you approach the hitting zone. This will ensure that you wind up in the right hitting stance. Remember to prepare early enough to allow your feet time to set up. For better power and control, align the beam of light from the flashlight to the path of the oncoming ball. This is what we call being in the slot in the backswing. You can get a better feel for ideal alignment
with the baseball glove drill.
From this angle, check and see if you're entering the adjustment zone with your hand and racket ahead of your body. This will automatically set you into an open stance with the option of stepping into the neutral stance.
As Adam began moving for that forehand, he dropped it down here. As he begins moving for that forehand, I can see Venus Williams, I can see Eva, I can see them moving right up in here. I can see Agassi, I can see that racket head going right up there. So we don't want to lose about 2 feet of extra swing.
Having a killer forehand around the house can be quite useful. While working on supper, we can also be working on X's swing line.
The killer forehand requires rapid acceleration on contact, but it also requires the butt of the racket to lead the forward part of the swing until you get to the ball. Then the racket head makes acceleration from an inside to an outside, giving you the killer forehand.
Hold it right there with the hand and the foot arriving at the path of the oncoming ball. This is where it all comes together. Good foundation, early first reaction, good footwork, technique moving to the ball, and an early and correct preparation has you in a killer forehand hitting stance. Now you're ready to fire forward. To get a better understanding of forward racket acceleration, use a towel and have your partner pull it out of your hands. It simulates the stroke. To test your flight path or swing line, have someone stand behind you with the racket between their hands. The racket needs to pull forward, straight out of the slot. Don't let the racket touch either hand on the way out. What we don't want to see is the racket touching the hand first. Not good. No power. No killer forehand.
So when you can hit that forehand a little bigger, move your feet, start sliding around, racket acceleration, hitting the ball 3 inches higher than you normally hit it, then you're developing the killer forehand at its maximum degree, and that's what I want.
Put your stroke to the test to see if you can make it out of the slot unscathed. For maximum racket head speed, you must pull the trigger.
I want you to see a practice session with one of my top students. I've had him for 7 years. His work ethics are impeccable. It's all business. They're out here for a purpose. When the purpose is fulfilled, practice is over. And that's what I want you to remember, whether it's for the killer forehand or any phase of the game. 1, 2, 3, excellent. 4, down the line, same way. 1, arm is in a little closer. 2, then extend away. Perfect. Up and away. That stops, that's excellent. You can't hit a ball better than, now, slow motion, up, arm in here, and then extend away. Half the power, nice and slow. Excellent. Yep. Perfect, Tommy, no harder. Yes, sir. Now the same thing, a little quicker with the racket. 1, 2, perfect.
Welcome to X's Kitchen. Today, Chef X will serve up his breakfast specialty: fresh squeezed orange juice and scrambled eggs.
As you pull the trigger and the racket starts forward out of the slot, the path which your arm travels is called your swing line. If you watch the right elbow through the stroke, you'll notice that it travels on a diagonal line out and across the body as the racket head accelerates into the ball. By extending to a full reach on your follow-through, you will create a contact zone that can be upwards of 18 inches in length, giving you better margin for error and control. For best leverage, try to consistently make contact in stage 3, out in front of your body. However, advanced players, through rapid acceleration of the racket at contact point, have the ability to make contact in stages 1 and 2 as well, and still manage to execute the various placements on the court. The follow-through is the key to success when executing strokes under pressure. The tendency for many players is to tighten up, which restricts the follow-through. Extending to the target lengthens the contact zone, giving you control and consistency. Remember, extend your follow-through, especially under pressure. As the stroke accelerates out of the slot, focus on the elbow and how it passes through the track. Check your swing to see if your arm is bent and flexible and whether your elbow stays on track.
We have to hit big killer forehand, but have a percentage that these shots can go in. And the contact points are all a little different. Those players that have tremendous racket acceleration can wait just a second once in a while. Those that hit a little bit more classical want to meet it out in front a little bit more. But all comes from the racket speed.
And here's another way to practice your swing line. Like the high wire circus performer using the pole to maintain balance, don't forget in tennis to use not only your hitting arm, but your opposite arm.
The use of the opposite arm is essential to generating killer forehand speed while maintaining consistency and accuracy. When you're forced wide in the court, your opposite arm can serve as a counterbalance, keeping your shoulders level through the stroke. By separating your arms early, this technique anchors down your swing, providing balance and a stronger pulling action. Practice hitting with a small weight in your hand. This simulates the feel of the counterbalance and the anchoring effect in the stroke. When the conditions are right to rip the killer forehand, the opposite arm is used in a sweeping motion, stretching the chest muscles into the stroke. Much like a baseball pitcher's glove arm, this sweeping action lengthens the lever, providing additional power through shoulder rotation. A great way to get a feel for the anchoring effect and benefits of the opposite arm is to practice the hand on the hip drill. This will give you the feel of stretching the chest muscles into the stroke. The opposite arm can anchor down the stroke on the wide shots and lengthen the lever with a sweeping action to give you more power on your killer forehand. Either way, it's always serving as a counterbalance to the stroke. Check and see how your stroke matches up to the pocket killer forehand. Another characteristic of the killer forehand that makes it so explosive is the loading of the weight into the back of the stance. Used in both the open and neutral stances, together with the opposite arm, this technique will put your killer forehand over the top. Practice hitting strictly, sinking your weight down. Try to keep your weight centered on the back foot throughout the stroke. This will give you a good feel for it. In comparison to video of yourself, focus on how the body winds up and coils like a spring from the hips up to the shoulders and sinks down into the back of the stance. This allows X to uncoil using the opposite arm to add more power. Loading the hip down below the height of the contact point or the loading line, together with the opposite arm use, will put the finishing touches to achieving killer forehand speed.
Yep, don't overhit. Now hold it. Now remember, when we are building a big forehand, we're not just knocking the forehand and saying, hey, I hope 1 of 5 go in. I want 5 out of 5 to go in. Otherwise, what the heck is a big forehand?
Never underestimate your opponent. No matter how well you hit the shot, get in the habit of always recovering your court position. As you move, you should keep your shoulders square to the net. Otherwise, use the quickest footwork possible. Remember, the average shot only takes less than 2 seconds to get to your opponent, So choose shots that help you maintain good court position unless you're hitting a point-ending shot. Check and see on recovery if your shoulders are facing the net as you move. Remember, you can't commit to a shoulder turn until after the opponents hit the shot. Work on good crossover speed in the first few steps.
Look how they sink down and using those legs. That's what you've got to do. Use your legs. You want to hit the killer forehand, look like it, act like it. It's your attitude. You may even want to dress like a killer forehand. New uniform, killer Oakley glasses, the man, the attitude, Xavier Malise. So the killer forehand is a packaged weapon. It is a F-18 loaded up to the gills that's coming at you in all directions.
As you can see, here at the lab, we're currently working on some new test subjects, starting off with the proper grip, trying to find one of the three commonly used grips of the killer forehand. And of course, the strong foundation, working on the first step reaction and trying to find the proper posture for a strong foundation. The hitting stances provide power, balance, and disguise, an open stance and a neutral stance. And then, of course, for racket head acceleration, use the towel test. It simulates the stroke. Don't forget about your opposite arm, the opposite arm, and the leverage band. Practice each of these concepts until you have it mastered, and soon you'll be known as the killer forehand. From the Bollettieri Sports Academy, I'm Professor Fester saying auf Wiedersehen and Dankeschön. We like to have a little marshmallow. Don't let it drop.
Yeah, it's got to be up around your shoulder.
He's the one letting the damn thing drop. I throw it up above his head. He plays like he's playing squash. He plays squash and marshmallow. Oh.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
My God. All right, here we go. All right.